Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Swisuiki. Coming up, West Papua on the agenda at PIFs. Also,
I love you so much. That suit you wore today, hey, that was a power move. You looked so good.
Māori and Pacific youth take cues from the Māori Queen, and
we belong here and we deserve to be here, and that's a big win for us. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Samoa and Fiji women's rugby team are ready to give their all. But first, Samoa's electoral commissioner has declared the official results of the snap general election. The early poll was called after months of political instability culminated in outgoing Prime Minister Fiamea Naomi Mata'afa's minority government being unable to pass its 2025 budget. Grace Viva'ai is in Samoa.
The four-day count across all 50 constituencies was completed yesterday, with FAST winning 30 seats, HRPP 14, the Samoa Uniting Party 3, and 4 seats going to independents. The Office of the Electoral Commissioner has also confirmed the number of votes cast were 90,403, with 89,831 of those counted as valid votes. The head of state has signed the writ of election, formally accepting the results and clearing the way for the next steps. Attention now shifts to the swearing in of members and the first sitting of Parliament, while several electoral petitions are also expected.
Pacific leaders are expected to reaffirm the forum's recognition of Indonesia's sovereignty over West Papua at the region's most important political gathering. They're also set to discuss plans to work with Indonesia and the UN towards a visit to West Papua next year. It comes as one researcher says violence is escalating to some of the highest levels ever seen.
New Caledonia's former collegial government president says West Papua holds an important place on the PIF agenda.
Regional stability is a major concern of the forum, and decolonization issues like New Caledonia, French Polynesia and West Papua remain troubling.
Louis Marple was at last year's leaders' meeting in Tonga, where civil unrest in New Caledonia was front and centre. While he met with Melanesian leaders to discuss sovereignty issues, he did not speak to the media. 1 year on, he's spoken out.
What I do know is that for the West Papua issue to be firmly addressed, Papua New Guinea must get involved, as well as the Melanesian Spearhead Group, since Indonesia is a member either as an observer or associate, and West Papua is also part of that group. This prospect of a high-level meeting with Pacific leaders in Indonesia, led by the UN, comes after years of failed plans by Melanesian leaders for talks. In this standoff with Indonesia, there are many interests at play, since Indonesia maintains strong diplomatic and economic ties with Papua New Guinea and Fiji. And that's the reality of today's world, a constant tension between defending human rights and serving the interests of states.
Pacific leaders have been asking Indonesia to facilitate a visit to West Papua since 2019. Both Fiji and Papua New Guinea's Prime Ministers failed to get one over the line after being appointed special envoys on West Papua at the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Meeting 2023. I sat down with Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape after the failed attempt to secure a visit.
We couldn't find a time where both of us go to Indonesia. We were asked to go and talk on the issue of human rights issues, but I did travel to Indonesia for my own bilateral exchanges. We went there, and United Nations just have to do their job also. It's a matter that in my view belongs to the United Nations pay grade. They must get in there and work with UN. MSG is just doing a job to have the antennas out to make sure no human rights issues take place in West Papua.
Also in Tonga last year, the then Vanuatu Prime Minister and Sub-Regional Bloc's Chair for 2024, Charles Salwai, told us there have been concerns surrounding West Papua for some time.
Maybe it is good to have a face-to-face meeting with the President of Indonesia. The forum back in 2019, Tuvalu decided to ask a UN mission to go and do fact-finding mission in Indonesia. What would be the root cause of alleged human rights violations?
Despite Vanuatu's chronic political instability, with 5 prime ministers in 4 years, successive governments have been consistent in their advocacy for West Papua. Fast forward to Leaders Meeting 2025, and a Human Rights Watch researcher based in Jakarta, Andreas Harsono, says fighting is now on par with some of the most violent periods in the past 60 years.
Indigenous Papuans are running away from their villages. There are low-intensity conflict between Indonesian security forces, including the army and the police, against the West Papua National Liberation Army.
For Louis Marple, a leader at a critical time of unrest in New Caledonia, the issue of sovereignty in West Papua and other parts of the Northern Pacific is a Melanesian issue.
So there are 2 major concerns. First, the situation on the ground, whether human rights are respected. On this point, Indonesia raises the obstacle of sovereignty and territorial integrity. On a different scale, we face the same issue here: the struggle for independence, New Caledonia's future, and human rights concerns tied to law enforcement practices.
He says tough conversations are needed around human rights in West Papua.
Vanuatu's final school term will likely be off to a bumpy start, with teachers set to strike. Students are due to return on Monday, but a major industrial dispute between the Vanuatu's Teachers Union and the government remains unresolved. Union Secretary General Jonathan Yona says no progress has been made in settling outstanding claims.
We ask the government to pay 100% of the legal claims, then we can enter into a negotiation again for the collective bargaining agreement, which will resolve the industrial action.
The industrial action began over a year ago and is over a range of remuneration issues. Vanuatu's highest court has ruled the action, which began with 600 teachers, is legal. The Vanuatu Daily Post previously reported Prime Minister Jotam Napat saying the government was paying the claims.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all. We've asked them to give us the payment records of when and what claims, for whom our members they have paid their claims, but we are still waiting. We haven't received anything. So until they prove to us with the list of payments, the names of people who they pay, what period or what date they do the payment.
Jonathan Yona says more than 2,000 teachers across Vanuatu are union members, and he's calling on all of them to join Monday's strike. Hundreds of Pacific people were present at Tūranga Waiwai Marae in Ngaruawahia this week, paying tribute to Māori monarch Te Ariki Nui Queen Waihono i te Pō, a year on since her coronation. Many Māori and Pacific youth say they are feeling invigorated by the leadership of Te Ariki Nui, with a sense of unity between cultures. Coco Lance has more.
The relationship between Te Moana Nui a Kiwa and Aotearoa runs deep, with Māori and Pacific leaders often crossing oceans and borders to honour their cousins of the Pacific. The attendees reflected on this enduring connection and how it continues to evolve, as Koroneihana marks 1 year since the ascension of Te Ariki Nui Queen Waihono i te Pō. Matalawa Lafaeli Barlow, a delegate from the Pacific General Assembly in Tāmaki Makaurau, says this year's Koroneihana has shone a light on youth voices.
This isn't just a showing up for an event, it's every day we are trying to awhi in our young people who are coming through, and I think that is what is so symbolic about this Koroneihana with our Queenie, is that she is so young, and so she is our vision, and that we are now following beside her, after her, so it's great to be here and be part of her first Koroneihana.
For Rowan Hemera, a student from Te Wānanga o Takiura, the long-standing history between Pacific and Māori is alive in moments like these.
Even though the Pacific is so vast and all the islands are spread out, we are all still connected, and being able to have that hononga still just means that we stay connected always.
Youth Voices this year shared similar sentiments that Te Ariki Nui, at just 28, symbolises a fresh, rangatahi-led future. Pacific Youth Delegate Maya Lucia Anetalia says Māori and Pacific people are stronger together.
Being here as Pacific Youth, it's important to even bridge the gap that we have between rangatahi Māori as well, because if we have to fight issues together, both being minorities, both being Indigenous peoples, that we actually have to come together, have unity, and to be able to support such a great thing like Koronei Hana. It's just so important that our Indigenous communities can all show up for each other, be there for each other, especially as young people, because we're the next generation, that it is our elders that, I guess, guide the way for us, but it's also us young people that actually take on that responsibility.
Te Araki Nui gave her first address, honouring her late father's legacy. She says she has been invigorated by the amount of solidarity shown this week. Festivities round up on Saturday with a festival, kapahaka, kai and performances.
In a country where access to government services has long been defined by long queues, paperwork and costly travel, Papua New Guinea's Department of Information, Communications and Technology has been making quiet strides towards digitising its public services. For years, the phrase digital government seemed like a distant dream. But since 2023, the Department of Information and Communications Technology has been laying the groundwork. Our PNG correspondent Scott Waide spoke with the department's secretary, Stephen Matainaho, about the project.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you go and you're not being sent around. The vision is that, and I used to use the term state in a phone, that you should be able to download an app. You should be connected, first of all, download an app, and you should be it should be very simple to access a government service. You shouldn't be sent around to other government agencies back and forth, or go and get this form, fill this in. Once this is done, go to this department and so forth. It must be simple, fast and clear. That's the objective. Now, to get to that vision, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. So for systems to operate in an integrated manner, all of government systems, first of all, we have to talk about system and data hosting infrastructure. So that's cloud infrastructure. We need to have a clear government policy on that, legal framework on that. That's cloud policy. Then you need to have a governance around which we manage the data. So if we're collecting data, citizens' data, how is it collected? What standards is it collected at? Where is it stored? And how is it made interoperable against different government systems? And we can talk about some practical aspects of that later. And then the third most important part is security. So to sum it up, you need a clear policy, guideline and guidance on digital infrastructure, that's connectivity and hosting. Then you need a clear policy on data, governance and protection. And then you need a clear policy and legal framework around security. Now, security of infrastructure and security of data. Those three are enabling frameworks to get to a point where we can access services simple, fast and clear. So that's a whole lot of framework. Unfortunately, we never had any of policies around it. Like data protection policy, most countries have it. We don't even have a data protection law in place. We have the Constitution highlights on protection of citizens' data, but no legal framework. Now you can then now see why departments are collecting have their own forms, collecting it, and they're saying that no, this data sits with me. You go and fill in another form across there. You get your license over there, and then you come back, and then you fill in a separate form again. When that same data is collected on that side, and then it's collected on the other side again. And at the end of the day, the citizens are just replicating the process. They're going, and now here's some practical examples. say I want an NID. NID requires maybe 3 forms of other ID. A medical book, potentially a driver's license, and a school ID. Now, if you think about it, all those forms of ID contain similar data. So you end up getting the citizen to go to the MVIL registering, filling in the same form, getting a license, going to school, enrolling, filling in the similar data, getting your school ID, and then maybe even another place to fill in. And then they go back to NID just to fill in the same form with extra and then attach those forms of ID to get your NID. We want to streamline all of that. But one of the best examples is Estonia. The moment they're born, they fill in their birth registration form. They never fill in a form ever again. Once they reach age of school, that data is pushed to education department. They're automatically enrolled. They're notified where they are assigned, where to school, even the seat number, and it goes on all the way up. The only other time they fill in a form is when they have to actually file for divorce, which they haven't digitized that. They're discouraging divorce. Everything else is all streamlined based on that one data that you filled in at birth. Now, we want to get to that point where you cut down the work so citizens are not just going across different siloed systems and enrolling and registering again. So when we talk about a digital government, that's a big work we need to undertake.
One last dance. Well, that's the story for both the Fijiana and Manusina Samoa national women's rugby sides at the Women's Rugby World Cup. 2 losses each in their last 2 matches means they're out of the main competition and will return home next week. Our senior sports journalist Iliesa Tora joins me for our Talanoa on what the weekend looks like for Pacific Rugby. Bula Iliesa, Fijiana and Manusina are sadly out of the quarterfinals. How are preparations going for their last pool matches?
Yes, both Manusina and the Fijiana women's rugby teams are out of the quarterfinals of the Women's Rugby World Cup 2025. But this weekend, on Sunday morning, in fact, our time here in New Zealand, they are both going to be in action in their last pool games. Manusina Samoa will take on the United States of America in their last pool match, and Fijiana will be taking on Wales in their last pool games. While they are out of the running of the main competition, both team camps have said that they are going to be putting their best foot forward and still playing their best rugby at the World Cup.
What needs to be done to help Pacific women's rugby so that they can be on par with the rest?
Well, one thing that head coach Ramsey Tomakino of Manusina stated during the week is very true. There needs to be more matches given to Pacifica teams. There needs to be more matches given to Tier 2, Tier 3 teams who are trying to get into the World Cup so that they are able to play consistently. It's a long-standing problem that has come through for the men's teams. Now we see a lot more matches happening, and this needs to be done for the women's teams as well.
Definitely, Ili. Like we can see, and we know that there's a lot of potential to be unlocked within our Pacific women's rugby teams. But just switching over to our Pacific men's rugby teams, we've got Manu Samoa and the Flying Fijians playing tomorrow afternoon in Rotorua. What can you tell us about that?
Manu Samoa are in a tight position at the moment. I know I had a chat with Captain Michael Alalatoa here at the Rotorua International Stadium, where he stated that they know the challenge that they have, and they know that Fiji will be tough, but they need to get out there and do the job. On the line for them is a World Cup spot at the 2027 Rugby World Cup in Australia. Manu Samoa needs to win tomorrow to get their campaign back on track. They lost to Tonga 3 weekends ago, and tomorrow, Alato said it is their chance to put their campaign back on track. Well, Tevita Ikanivera of the Flying Fijians believes that the fact that Samoa is needing to win tomorrow on Saturday will make the game very tough. He expects the Samoans to be tough and physical, and he indicated that they have also learned from the game against Tonga last weekend, where although they did win in Suva, there were still mistakes that needed to be fixed.
Now, we've got some Pacific players in action for the Wallabies and the All Blacks on Saturday. Who are they, and what can we expect from the 2 Pacific Rugby Championship test matches?
Well, the men, Adi Sabea, everybody's been talking about Adi throughout the Super Rugby season this year, and into the Pacific Rugby Championship against Argentina. They won the first test and lost the second in Argentina, the All Blacks that is, and Adi Sabea will be playing against the Springboks at Eden Park on Saturday afternoon in his 100th test game. That is a game that a lot of people are looking forward to, and Adi will have a number of Pacifica heritage players who will be playing alongside him tomorrow. Tupo Vai, you have Rieko Iowane, you have Emily Narawa out there in the wing. They will be there trying to back Adi and helping the All Blacks try and win that test game. Across the Tasman, the Wallabies will be playing against Argentina at the Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. That is an interesting clash also, and a number of Pacific heritage players are also in the lineup tomorrow. One of the interesting players is Daniela Tupo, who, earlier this year and after the Super Rugby the Super Rugby Pacific competition, wasn't sure whether he was going to get a recall into the Wallabies, but he got that. He played against the British Lions in the 3rd test, and then he went to South Africa, played 2 tests there, and he's in the test against Argentina again on Saturday afternoon. And alongside him, you have players like Len Ikitau, Joseph Augusto Suaini, and the Fijian flyer, Filippo Daumunu.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.